Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode of Retro Horror Games Quest. Today, we are taking a look at another Commodore 64 game, which this time thankfully does not look like an Atari 2600 game. Let's dive right in.
Project Firestart.
Project Firestart was released in 1989 for the Commodore 64 and developed by Dynamics. You take the role of one John Hawkins of the USS, that's the United System States, who is given the task, by fax, of retrieving a science log from the Prometheus, a spaceship that is being used as the base of Project Firestart, and with which communications have been lost. Project Firestart's goal was to produce reliable laborers capable of helping mine titanium and iridium, but something went wrong. Of course it did, otherwise we wouldn't be here, would we? You can move around the ship with a joystick. You're mostly moving left or right down corridors, but sometimes you can move up and down on more open areas. You can press the C key to change weapons and use the fire button to interact with stuff and to shoot in the direction you are facing. This means there will inevitably be some accidental shots here and there when you start playing for the first time. For example, if an elevator is on the same floor as you, you don't need to press the fire button to open its door, it will open automatically. But if it's on a different floor, you must press the fire button to call it. Also, some doors need to be opened while others just need to be touched to activate, so sometimes, especially while running away from the enemies, I would press the fire button to open a door that didn't need to be open and waste a bullet. You get used to it eventually though. There's a lot to explore. The ship has 4 floors, all of which have sections that are only accessible through different elevators, which means you might want to do the old school thing and grab a pen and paper to draw your own map. Well, that is unless you play a lot of survival horror games and your mind became a map-making machine, like yours truly. It also helps that the ship is filled with the bodies of the green mutant victims. Or maybe it doesn't help. It certainly helps the survival horror feel of this game. And the bodies do contain some goodies from time to time. Another iconic survival horror thing you can find around the ship are logs that help tell the story and give you information about the ship and the project themselves. Most of the ship is empty and irrelevant to your objectives, but that's the fun of it. You don't know where the science log is. You don't know the layout of the ship. You must explore and find your objective, and on the way you will probably find a lot of interesting stuff that might or might not be related to a side objective. For example, in my first playthrough I found an oxygen valve and a button that powers on the ship. I had no idea what these were for at first, but eventually, after reading some logs and exploring a bit more, they made sense. Not everything is useful though. Some of the stuff you find around the ship is just set dressing, and that was one of the things that impressed me the most in this 1989 game. A really cool moment that comes to mind is when you find a small room that contains nothing but a button. Pressing this button turns on a hologram that fills the whole room, displaying a beautiful natural environment. This was most likely for the people aboard the ship who missed their beloved planet Earth, or those that just wanted a moment to relax. Either way, it's beneficial set dressing that makes the ship feel like it had life inside once. And even though most rooms are empty, most of them are also different from one another, which gives the ship even more variety. Even though it does not enhance your gameplay experience in any way, it does make you feel like people could live there. So here we go. Our mission is simple. Just get the log and book it. Can't be that hard, right? Wrong. We have 2 main obstacles here. First, we have our standard enemies, the Project Firestart failed experiments. I was surprised to find out that where they will pop up and where they will not seems to be influenced at least a little bit by a random number generator. It's really effective in leaving you a bit on the edge, especially if your health or ammo is low. They're not easy to put down either. They take a good amount of bullets before they explode into bits, and you can only hold 2 weapons at a time, which means that sometimes it might be better just to run away in good survival horror fashion. Besides these fun green friends, we have a white mutant that appears later in the game. It cannot be killed by normal means though, and you must find out some information about it by reading the logs scattered around the ship to find out how to get rid of it. It also damages you a lot faster than the standard green creatures. You can find first aid kits and a regeneration machine around the ship, which will aid your wounds. They are one use only though, excluding the regeneration machine, so choose when to use them carefully. Another very cool feature is that you can close some doors behind you to prevent enemies from following you. Of course, just remember that they will be on the other side waiting to say hi when you decide to go back. Not pleasant. The game has one primary weapon, the energy pulse laser gun. You can find some of them scattered around the ship, but you can only hold 2 at a time, as I stated before. If you want to ditch your current weapon for a fully charged one, well, too bad, you can't. You have to fully use one of your current weapons before you can pick up a new one. There is another gun that you can find later in the game, and that is the plasma laser. This is much stronger than the normal energy pulse laser, but as far as I know, you can only find one of them, so I'd suggest saving it for this final stretch. The game includes multiple endings, one of which caught me by surprise. Right at the beginning of the game, you can choose to board your small ship again and abandon your mission. Your boss will get pissed at you and you will get an early game over. Is this the first "nope, I'm out of here" ending in video games? Hard to tell, but it might be the first one in horror games. That fun ending aside, you can end your playthrough prematurely not just by being killed by enemies, but by either shooting a TNT stack, not finishing within 2 hours, which is a time limit of your mission, or not leaving the ship after activating the self-destruct sequence, which you must do after getting the science log due to the biological nature of the incident. There might be more fun ways of ending yourself quickly, but I did not find any more of them. As for actual endings, they change according to what you do before escaping the Prometheus. At certain times you will be shown these strange cutscenes involving a woman in a cryostasis pod and a man who seems to have left his own pod. Eventually the cryostasis door will be unlocked and you can go in and rescue the woman. The problem here, of course, is that you must explore to find out where the cryostasis room is beforehand, or she will be mauled by the green mutants. Whether you help her or not changes the ending you get, which is an excellent incentive to do another playthrough if you couldn't help her in your first time around. Which is not that big of an undertaking considering the game is roughly 1 hour long, 20 minutes if you know where you're going and what you're doing. But still, there are other surprises during the game that I would rather not spoil here in case you want to experience the game for yourself. Don't expect much story here though, as there's barely any of it. You have your mission and you must do it, that's basically it. There may be a bit more, but I'll let you find out for yourself. In terms of visuals, the game is pretty impressive for the time. It has a delightful art style and some moments are truly beautiful to look at. I think my mind would have been blown away if I had played this at the time. Sound and music are other beasts though. Being as straight to the point as I can be, they are downright terrible. Music is a mix of drone-ish sounds with some sci-fi sounding melodies thrown here and there. This sounds good for sci-fi horror, yes. If the drone sounds didn't feel like they were drilling holes into your skull. One of the songs even tries to integrate a siren into it. It's just strange and in a not very pleasant way. Sound effects are okay, nothing great, but I do love the absence of music during most of the exploration, which genuinely gives you the feeling of being completely isolated. Whenever an enemy decides to pay you a visit, a repeating melody will play, much like what we saw in the Halloween adaptation for the Atari 2600 on the first episode. And just like in that game, it got incredibly annoying really fast here too. The melody that plays when you clear a screen of enemies is pleasant though, so at least it has that going for it. This is truly the first time that a game has felt like a survival horror game in this series. The vagueness of your mission and the stiff controls kind of gave me a bad first impression, but I'm really glad I stuck to it and kept going. The game ended up being a delightful experience, considering that you know that you're playing a Commodore 64 game from 1989. It does have its shortcomings though, a lot of which have to do with the technology at the time. For example, the frames per second are really low, and at times when there are multiple enemies on the screen, it feels like you're watching a stop-motion animation. But the exploration of the unknown, the locks painting a picture of what happened in that ship, the tension of the enemies being able to spawn at any time, did honestly give me the survival horror vibes. I give Project Firestart for the Commodore 64 3 stars out of 5, with a survival horror fan required play score of yes! Finally! Our first yes! Just don't get demotivated by the first moments of playing this game, especially when you're going like from the current era or maybe even the PlayStation 1 era or the PlayStation 2 era of horror games back to the Commodore 64. If you feel like you're getting demotivated, stick to it a little bit more. If you're like me, maybe it will click. Exploring the ship, finding out where everything is, and perfecting your run is very enjoyable. Maybe just play the Silent Hill soundtrack in the background or something. And next time on Retro Horror Games Quest, we will be playing Friday the 13th for the NES. Another horror movie adaptation. I've heard a lot about this one, so I'm kind of looking forward to trying it for myself. Hopefully you will join me on that adventure as well. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to click like, it really helps. Also, why not drop a comment? And if you want to see more of this series, you can check the other 2 episodes on my channel, or you can click the playlist linked below. And remember to subscribe if you want to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you 100% don't want to miss the next episode, remember to click that bell, so YouTube will definitely notify you when it releases. I would also like to thank my Patreon supporters right here. I truly appreciate your support. If you want to support me on Patreon and get some rewards, you can check out the link in the description below as well. So thank you for getting scared again with me tonight, and I hope to see you back here for the next episode of Retro Horror Games Quest.
Good night.